Welcome to episode 104 of the XrmToolCast. In this episode, Scott and I speak with Nick Doelman, a former MVP, former Microsoft employee, now that's neither and looking to be an MVP soon, and been with Scott, now becoming a Microsoft employee. It's just a great opportunity to be able to share that journey with Nick, and then hopefully Scott can learn a little bit on the way, as well as all of us others that may not be an MVP, or may not be a Microsoft employee, or haven't made that transition yet, or won't ever make that transition. Who knows? It's interesting. We'll see what it's like. So anyway, sit back, relax. Let's get started. Welcome to another episode of the XrmToolCast. With me, your host, Daryl, always raising the bar, and Scott, I quit on everything, Drew. Scott, how's it going?
Very good, thank you, Daryl. I think not quitting on everything. Let's just be clear on this. Not just, that's it. No more. Sorry, I'm out. Yes, I have announced, so when we're recording this yesterday, that I'm moving to Microsoft, which is very exciting. Just got back from the South Coast Summit in the UK and also Vegas. And it was so funny because kind of everyone seemed to know. I think there was a number of people that might have mentioned it to a couple of people, and then the rumor spread. And then it'd be so funny because I'd be talking to people and they'd be like fishing for information. They'd be, so how's it going, Scott, then with your work and everything? Any changes, anything, any news? No, nothing. It's all same old here.
So you are beginning this Blue Badge journey. So for those that don't know, the Microsoft Blue Badges, we tend to, that's how we refer to them, especially when they leave the MVP program. And so I thought it would be great to have a guest on today that has already gone through the whole gambit of being an MVP, transitioning to Blue Badge, and then transitioning out of that. So our guest today is none other than Nick Doelman, a dad, husband, power lifter, independent power platform specialist, and his views and opinions are his own. Mr. Doelman, Nick, how's it going?
Good. Hi, Daryl. Hi, Scott.
Welcome, Nick.
Excited to be part of the show. The first time I'm on XrmToolCast.
Yes.
Yes, I feel an apology on both counts, actually, because firstly, I thought you'd been on the Toolcast already before. So firstly, real apologies about that. I don't know. I must have dreamt it. I'm dreaming about you. That's clear. But then secondly...
That's not awkward at all.
Yeah, not awkward at all. No, let's move on from that. But secondly, your call out to me about lackluster plugs for the Boost podcast you do. I just went in the wrong direction, and then it all kind of collapsed into a big heap on the floor. But I think I did redeem myself a little bit. Surely, I mean, I got a little bit of enthusiasm at the end.
Absolutely, yeah, you did redeem yourself a little bit, and it was, and you were an easy target for me to call you out when I was we were recording the Boost earlier this week. So it was all good.
Yeah, well, I watched your most recent episode, which was awesome. So you were drinking beer in Ulrika's house,
yes,
and kind of over the kitchen counter or whatever it was, and that was pretty awesome. And so you're in Norway at the moment, that's
yes.
right, yeah.
Yep.
So tell us about what you got up to in Vegas then.
In Vegas, lots of exciting stuff. It was interesting. I was there as an attendee, which was weird for me to go to a conference as an attendee. I actually had to pay for a ticket, and that hurt a lot because usually as a speaker or, even working for Microsoft, you kind of get these things covered in certain situations. But it was good. So the pressure was off. Although my podcast partner, Ulrika, had 2 sessions that I was there, kind of moral support, also there with dongles and cords and cables, just in case, because you guys know how it goes, right? And sometimes everything goes and all of a sudden your laptop doesn't hook up to the projector and everything like that. So I made sure I was ready with everything just in case. Also kind of flashing the time. You got 30 minutes, you got 10 minutes, you got 5 minutes, and you need to wrap it up. Those types of things. And then we also did for the Boost podcast. This is something that we do when we're together at events, is we do like a recap of the event, kind of the sessions we saw and things like that, just to I know people have a lot of FOMO because they can't go to some of these things. And we're not trying to fan the FOMO flame more than anything, trying to like, kind of give a bit of a review. So the things we saw, just to kind of inspire people, to make them feel a part of the event the best that we can. And that's sort of how we do that. So that was what we did in Vegas. And then the other thing, and I'm expecting you guys to do the exact same thing. Rick and I got matching tattoos of the podcast on our arms.
Oh, wow.
That raised a few questions on various
That
fronts.
is, sorry, wait, you're expecting me and Daryl to do the same thing?
Yeah, I fully expect the next episode you guys to be flashing your XrmToolCast.
You know, we don't already have these tattoos
Maybe
in places
you do.
we just can't publicly show.
Oh,
you know?
okay.
You don't know this.
Yeah.
There we go.
I could be sitting at
possibly
Scott's
show
face
where
every
they
single time
are.
I sit down, and you don't know.
You're questioning our commitment to the XrmToolCast here, you know.
I'm not questioning it at all. If you guys say you have tattoos, who am I to dispute that?
I'll show you later, Nick.
Okay, that's not awkward either. All right.
No, again, this is going in the room.
Usually I'm the one that's awkward, and today it's Scott, so that's great. That's great.
Cool.
Yeah, digging myself into a hole there.
Yeah, but of course,
those summaries are just amazing because I think, yeah, like you say, having the ability for people to listen, to get the highlights, it is really, really good. So, what were your kind of like top 3 big things that you thought were special about the announcements at the conference?
It's interesting. My perspective on it was interesting because, of course, everything day one was Copilot this, Copilot that, Copilots, boop, 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 and I'm not trying to poo-poo on the Copilots at all. I think they're very early in the journey, and I think there's a lot of neat things that they're capable of doing. But in terms of actually utilize them in a project where I can say, go to a Power Page site and say, hey, create me a form that does this. And yes, it creates a form without lookups, without a data model, not adding it to the default solution, all of these things that we kind of frown upon when we're creating things. Then I struggle a bit with Copilots. But then I saw, I think the second day, the keynote, they were showing GitHub Copilot. And it was the CTO, the CEO of GitHub, and he built a Snake demo. Snake, the old Nokia game you used to play on the flip phones.
Yeah.
He built that using GitHub for Copilot. That Copilot is essentially 6 to 8 months older than the Power Platform Copilots. And it was really cool. It could do a lot of amazing things. So if anything, it kind of gave me that, you know what, despite the fact that the Copilots in their current state, and don't get me wrong, a lot of them actually are pretty powerful. I think the Power Automate one's pretty cool. The Copilot for generating code and for Power Pages is pretty neat. Some of these other ones, they'll come along as well. So it's exciting to be early part of that journey and just to see where the destination is. So that kind of, took a little bit of my, I guess maybe my negative perception on some of these things and turned that around to we're at the start of the journey. And if anybody, I should know this because I worked with CRM version 1. And that wasn't really ready for prime time either. But look at it now, and look at the Power Platform now, how far it's come and what we can do with it. So I think that's the sort of the impression I got too. It's like, yes, we are living in an AI world, and it's interesting to be part of that journey. And we're at basically at not even step 1. We're probably still in beta in terms of a lot of these things. So it's an exciting time, and just sort of like, okay, realign your mindset and let's be part of this exciting journey as we move forward.
And you mentioned that, you've been involved right from the beginning, right from, the CRM 1 days, let's go and get glassy eyes about that. But, the kind of your career has spanned all of that change, all of the move from CRM, Dynamics, and then obviously into the Power Platform, Dataverse. And you were awarded the MVP and then moving to Microsoft. So, yeah, your kind of career has sort of spanned like all of these different dimensions. Could maybe just sort of take us through a little bit of how you were first awarded the MVP and, a little bit about your journey there.
Sure. No, that was interesting. I was awarded first in April 1st, 2017. And it was interesting because that's April Fool's Day. And I'm kind of like, okay, who's pulling a trick on me with this, who's spoofing the email from Microsoft? But the journey there was I was in a project in 2013, 2014, got heavily into using ADX Studio. And the story goes, there was between me and another, one of us had to manage the portal implementation side of this project. Another one had to manage the developer side. We played rock, paper, scissors, and I think I either won or lost. I don't recall, but I ended up with doing the ADX Studio
I
portal
guarantee
stuff.
you either won or lost. Nick.
Either, yeah. So what I ended up doing is, trying to learn how ADX Studio worked and trying to figure that out to apply to this project. The company I was working for at the time gave me a lot of leeway, a lot of, ramp up time to do that. And so I started building proof of concepts and started learning stuff. And of course I thought, we did take some of the ADX Studio training at the time, which was very developer focused, not so much in some of the tool sets they used. So as I learned this, I'm like, okay, I'm going to forget about this in 6 months. So I need to start writing this down. And by writing it down, I thought, what better place to do it as a blog post? So I started doing a series of blog posts specifically on ADX Studio, but then of course, a lot of other stuff in the Power Platform that was kind of hard to find information on, like, working with currencies, running into certain errors with Dynamics 365. And I just started blogging and I loved it. It was like on a weekly thing. And then you kind of begin to document your journey a little bit. And then at that point, I started having quite a bit of content. I started doing sessions, putting in sessions for like XrmUG and Extreme 365 and those conferences of, of the day, and started getting selected to speak these conferences and really enjoying it and meeting some of the other MVPs, like, of course, Scott and Daryl, meeting folks like Rick McCutcheon and Britta Rexted, and of course the Yaks, and all that group. And like, these are very cool people. We think the same. We get excited about the same things. And then, I was working with the Canadian, at that time, the Canadian community manager. And he gave me a lot of great coaching and advice in terms of how to do content for the MVP program. And then, and eventually, I got the award and kind of felt immediately at home. And I think the first conference I went to I did a conference earlier before I was awarded the MVP. It was Adam Vero used to do the XRM Factor. I don't know if you guys remember those, where it was a contest, and I was up against guys like Scott Sewell, Gus Gonzalez, few of the other MVPs at the time, and kind of in this competition. I was the non-MVP. And I think I did my bit on kind of those JavaScript snippets or shortcuts that eventually turned into some of these other tools like God Mode and all that. That's what I sort of presented on, and I ended up winning that contest. So that kind of made me feel, okay, maybe I do belong with this group of folks. Still at that time, huge imposter syndrome, and I still get that every so often. But then, and then eventually I got the MVP award, and then, then started going to conferences and kind of felt much more included in the group. And then also outreaching and people like that, meeting a lot of other great people. Interesting. When I met Jerry Weinstock for the first time, and of course we all know Jerry, it was at the XrmUG Medics booth, and Jerry said, "Okay, Nick, you're new. Tell me about yourself." And I said, "How long do you got?" He says, "You got 5 minutes, and then I'll quit listening."
That's brutal. I'm not sure what we'd do about
that.
I
wasn't sure how to take that, but then a few years later, George Dubinsky said, "Oh, he gave you 5. He only gave me 3 minutes, so it was all good."
Well, I think this is the common denominator about all MVPs. When we talk about our experiences, it's all very much about, well, it kind of all just happened by accident. There was never any point where we went, right, okay, I'm going to become an MVP. It was more like, okay, well, this is the stuff we're doing. And then we got noticed in the way that was just what we were doing on a day-to-day basis. So it's always interesting when people say, I'd like to become an MVP, and how do I do it? Because I get asked that a lot. And it's very difficult to answer that, other than just, well, kind of do what you love, and then everything else will just fall into place.
Yeah, you got to like it. Like, I think the MVP, it's not a title or a certification, it's an award. And it is award for doing stuff that I like to do. If it's a chore, then it's not for you. And I know people that will do some stuff in the community, but for them to, it's too much. It's an effort. And if it's an effort, if it's not fun, then the MVP program is not for you. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Well, it was obviously quite a difficult decision for myself to move to Microsoft, because when you move to Microsoft, then you can't be an MVP anymore, because the MVP is an award for non-Microsoft employees. And so, yeah, that was difficult, because then it means that I'm moving out of that group that I love. I've made so many great friends like yourselves, and had so many great experiences, and it does feel, you create like a community inside the community. It's like a kind of like an inner community inside of the larger community. So it was a difficult decision for me, but what was your motivation? What equation did you go through in your head when you decided to move to Microsoft?
To be honest, Scott, that was probably the number one blocker for me to, that was sort of in terms of a go, no go decision. To join Microsoft, and we'll maybe unpack that a little bit. So I joined Microsoft in 2021, and of course, though I don't know if you guys saw in the news, but there was this pandemic happening, or kind of around that time.
Really?
I don't know.
No, I didn't see that. No.
I don't know, being kind of locked up in your house and a little stir crazy. So up until then, I like from about 2018 to 2020, I was an independent consultant. I was traveling a lot, going to different conferences, doing training around the world, absolutely loving the work I was doing. Had lots of interesting projects. I was learning tons. And then this opportunity came up for me to join Microsoft. And it was sort of as interesting because I wasn't looking for it. It was sort of something that kind of landed in my lap, and someone pinged me to say, hey, this might be interesting for you. It was to work on the documentation for Power Apps portals. And I'm like, yeah, I do like, writing blogs and content around, of course, Power Apps portals, because that was a lot of what I did. So it sounds interesting. It was good. I thought, okay, well, I'll apply for it. I reached out to some folks within Microsoft, because at that time it was being advertised as, in place in Redmond. And I'm like, I'm not moving. Very happy where I am. Can this be a remote position? Of course, right in the middle of pandemic, it's like absolutely everybody's working from home anyway. I was offered the position, and I was sort of like, okay, this means that I will be giving up being an MVP. This means I will now have to answer to a boss. This means of kind of transitioning some of my clients over to other folks that can take care of these projects I've been working on. Is this something that I want to do? And it's interesting because I also, it really, before the pandemic, enjoyed traveling, doing training and that kind of thing. Of course, that had all turned virtual. And if anybody has done virtual training as an instructor, it can be excruciatingly painful. Sometimes you're just talking to your computer. It feels like you're talking to a brick wall. Everybody's camera's off. You don't know if they're reacting or not. And I really struggled with that. That's not to say you can do good virtual training experiences. And I want to do a shout out to Macaw and Rebecca Albers. She organized a training that I'd done prior to joining Microsoft, and they had their cameras on. They were joking. They were asking questions. And I kind of realized, okay, maybe online learning can work, but those are very rare. For every experience like that, there was 10 others where I was doing online learning, and it just wasn't the same as in the in-person. So the Microsoft opportunity came along, and then I was sort of like, I kind of was trying to decide to say, yeah, this means giving up the MVP. What does that mean? That is something I really enjoy. Like, don't get me wrong, I enjoy being MVP. I like doing the work that supports that. I love the community. I love the networking. I love the camaraderie. Love to be able to, call somebody else up and help out. But it works all ways. I'm willing to help out, and people are willing to help out me when I have questions. And we're all sort of, we're aligned. As much as it is quote unquote work, it's kind of a hobby for us, right? So it was a tough decision. And but I also thought, with this opportunity, these opportunities don't come along very often. So my headspace going in was, I'm going to give this at least a year. And we're going to see how it goes. And if it works out great, then I'll stick around. And then if not, I know that I can go back. Whereas if I decided not to do it, then in a few months, I might be regretting going. I might have one of those days, where the clients are upset or things aren't working well. And you're like, shoot, I could have joined Microsoft. I could have had a different path, and I didn't do it. What could have been? So I answered that what if, because at least I knew the option was there to go back. And then, interesting, I spent 2 years within Microsoft, huge, great experience. I met a lot of people on the product team that I had interacted with before, but I met a lot more people. I got to see how products are developed, how program managers work, how some of the engineering side works. We went through a new product launch, effectively taking Power Apps portals, becoming Power Pages. That was really interesting to see how that process went in terms of launching a new product. I gave my input / rant lecture on renaming things to various people around that time as well. And it was sort of
For marketing or just the technical people?
it was the technical, it was all a bit of everything, but this sort of like,
Okay.
the strife and the, like the anxiety and everything, renaming and the problems it causes. And they were kind of like, okay, duly noted, but move on anyway.
We
And
value
so
your feedback.
exactly. Yeah. We value feedback and in the fullness of it, we'll take it into consideration and we'll take that offline. You know how that goes. And then also living through, so that was the public preview launch, and then there was the GA as well, and all that entailed, and the going live and getting people to sign up and things like that, and of course some of the engineering efforts behind all that. Even though it was sort of an existing product that kind of got rebranded and realigned, there was of course new features with that, very interesting aspects to it. And it was interesting working with the docs. But then I found that, once things with the pandemic died down and then conferences and things were happening, for me working in docs, those opportunities weren't as prevalent as they might be for you, Scott, in the cloud advocate position, which I hope you'll be able to go and be the face of Microsoft in a lot of these events. Working in docs, those opportunities weren't as prevalent. I was still going to some places, doing some side gigs and training. And ultimately, as like, this is where I belong. This is what I want to be doing. I want to be doing the training. I want to be back out there. Traveling is a thing again. It's not being held back. So ultimately, I kind of went back and forth on a few things. Had some really good input, some from really good friends, and who you are, who kind of helped talk me through a lot of this stuff. And yeah, then eventually came to a decision like, yep, I'm going to go back out to be an independent consultant, and actually immediately got some training gigs lined up. And then now I'm actually going to be about 50% of my time spent on a fairly significant Power Pages implementation. So I'm hoping now out of Microsoft to be doing about half my time doing training, delivery, and that kind of thing, and doing some real live work, because that was something I began to miss after 2 years learning, seeing all these new features. Like, this is really cool. I would love to be able to apply this to an actual working solution or project. And working in docs really wasn't, yes, I could fire it up, I could try it out, I could make sure the documentation worked well, but it was also like, there's something missing for me personally in my career. I need to be building real things. I love to be talking to people kind of, about this stuff, training people, getting that next generation of Power Platform builders and makers, getting them empowered for them to make cool stuff. That's what's driving me. That's what gives me the energy going forward. So here I am. I think I've been out of Microsoft a month or so now. So hopefully the chair is warm for you, Scott, and maybe you got my old laptop. And when I joined Microsoft, people reached out. I got both the, hey, congratulations, and I other got the people reaching out going, what are you, crazy? What are you doing? What are you joining the big blue machine for? And then leaving Microsoft, I got the same thing. It's like, why are you leaving? And then other people are going, good, you got out. Congratulations. So yeah, that's sort of the journey there and how that happened. And no regrets on anything along the whole journey, the whole way.
My current gig, I've been doing a lot more managing, less coding, and I'm starting to really remember why I like coding more than managing. Because or even going through and designing some things, like I'd rather just be coding. Like I was like, man, I can either do this task or I can do this task, and I'm going to do this task. Like that's part. I'm not in touch with my emotions. I can't figure things out sometimes, but I realize, when I'm sitting down and I've got 2 tasks to do, the one that I want to do and that's what I find enjoyment doing. So that was that's always helpful for me too, to realize that, I know I want to do this. I have 2 things that, these are fine. These are things I could do, but I really want to do, and then I'm realizing I need to try to keep on incorporating that as much as I can, just for,
Yeah, and I know a lot of people like that too. It was just sort of like, when I had my company as well, I had a company with years ago, And one of my mentors said to me, he said, you got to have to decide whether or not you want to be the operations, the staff, and do the strategic side, or do the work and hire somebody to do those operations. And we never got to that point. And I realized, you can't, it's hard to do both. And then even in terms of managing people, it's sort of like, I like to inspire and train, but I also like to have the hands-on. So Chris Huntingford, he said something that really stuck with me. He said, I heard him say this last year. He said, I'm a leader, not a manager. And I like that. I like to think of myself that way. I don't want to be egotistical about it, but to manage people,
I mean, you're Canadian.
I'm not interested in managing people, but to lead people or help inspire them for sure. And I mean, I helped on this company I'm helping out here in Norway. Today we had a meeting with someone that's very early in career, helping her work through some Power Automate flows, kind of trying to find a solution to a sticky thing. And we kind of worked through it together. And to me, it was like, okay, this is what I like doing. And then for her too, her name Natalie. Shout out to Natalie. She's really keen. She's built some really cool things, and together we were able to collaborate on this. And it was kind of a cool. This is like, again, in my head, this is what I want to be doing. Finding solutions, and this is for a real world problem. It was for one of the projects she was working on, and I really enjoyed that. And that's just being in Microsoft in that position that I was in. That was a bit of a struggle. A few weeks before I left Microsoft, I actually met with some of the engineers, and we were taking a look at the Copilot for Power Pages that does the code generation, which is a really, really cool feature. This is one of the Copilots I really like. And they were asking me some bits of feedback on how certain things were and everything. And like, I had tried it out. I had made some videos on it. And I was kind of like, guys, you know what? I'd love to be able to give you better feedback. But in order for me to do that, I'm going to need a real project with some real sticky situations. And then I'm going to, be able to deliver that to you. So that's something I hope to be able to still do in a few months, kind of working on this other project, to go back to that group and say, okay, we've tried it. Here are the good, here's the bad, here's the ugly, some good, real world feedback. And so again, this is sort of it's all part of the journey. And I hear what you're saying, Daryl, about, if I got to talk to somebody about an HR issue or get to crack open VS Code and do some stuff, I know what I'm picking.
Nerd. Yep, I'm with you. This reminds me of Scott Hanselman, which Scott and I were talking last. Scott Durrell, not Scott Hanselman, and I were talking last night, and he met him at a conference last year, and after he met him in his video, he interviewed you, which is kind of funny that back to back.
Yeah, and I miss meeting Scott Hanselman, and I regret that. Anyways,
I was seriously fanboying. I couldn't even get my words out. I was sort of, weak at the knees.
And does Scott? Now, here's the question: does Scott have Hansel minutes tattooed somewhere on his body?
Oh yes, that is a question.
Well, maybe that's the idea. I mean, I was thinking if I got the MVP logo tattooed in the next, because I start on Monday, so I've got between now and Monday that I can use the MVP logo. Because when you become an MVP, there is like terms and conditions that you have to sign. And one of those terms and conditions is that you won't misuse the logo. And actually, you're only licensed to use the logo if you have the award. So what would happen if I got the logo tattooed on me? Am I going to get like a lawsuit against me? Like, sorry, you have to, that's an illegal use of that. You're going to have to get rid of that tattoo.
Cut off your arm.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, circling back to why I even brought up Scott, he had a Venn diagram of your perfect job, and it was you're good at it, you enjoy it, and you can get paid for it. And every single job you do, you're going to have certain areas of, this one, maybe I get paid a lot, but I hate it. Or maybe I'm good at this, but no, I don't get paid anything for it. Or, and then you can kind of have to figure out, what area you're trying to really maximize and trying to enjoy in that position. So Scott, it'll be interesting to see your feedback after a couple months of what are you enjoying? What are you good at? And hopefully you're getting paid for it. I imagine you wouldn't have took it otherwise, but
Yeah.
Maybe
I
you're,
think it's
you're very generous.
Ikigai, the Japanese Venn diagram. I actually posted on Twitter another Venn diagram, which is kind of more accurate to some of the things that I do, which is, anyway, we'll maybe put a link to that into the show notes. But it's difficult to know before you started a job when you've only got the job description to go on. I mean, that's the challenge you always make, isn't it? When you move between jobs, you look at the job description and go, well, let's face it, you've done, there's many jobs where the job description doesn't actually match the reality of what you end up doing. But I think the advocacy role that I'm going to be going into, I love, because I'll be able to kind of have one foot in the community as well as one foot inside the Microsoft engine, technical behind the scenes kind of things, and be able to do that bridge. So I'm really looking forward to that. And in the sense that this role will allow me to do all of the things that I love doing as an MVP, but actually doing it in an more official capacity, working for Microsoft. So let's we'll do another episode where I'll come back and actually tell you what it actually like.
Yeah, so and that's the thing, Scott. One thing I would say too is like I said, it was a big thing for me to give up the MVP award. But then I realized joining Microsoft, it really didn't mean anything, because still going to community events or doing sessions and whatever else, it was sort of like it was same old, kind of the same group of people. It's not that you change or you evolve. Like, yes, your job changes, but in terms of the community involvement, to me, it was exactly the same vibe, the same people. And it was interesting because I did a talk last year in Orlando at Microsoft Power Platform Conference. And at that time, my manager, who was in the crowd, after I did that session, he kind of came up to me. He said, "I have some thoughts on your session." I'm like, "Oh, here we go. Like, what did I say that is going to get me into kind of trouble?" He said, "Up there, I did not see Nick, the content developer." He said, "I saw Nick, the MVP, and that was really cool to see." And I thought, "Oh, that made me really feel good."
Yeah, that's really good to hear, because then you can be authentically yourself.
Mhm.
And I think that's always the danger with any position, is that if you stop being authentically yourself, then that's when the problems can happen, because then you get that role conflict in your head and you think, well, I'm not really doing something true to my own thoughts and my own beliefs. So yeah, that's really good to hear, actually, very encouraging. I mean, would you have any other advice for me? I mean, this is sort of me fishing for some
okay.
juicy things.
Let's go more perspective to, like, I'm assuming that there's going to be something that he maybe won't be expecting, like a negative that he won't be expecting, and a positive he won't be expecting. Like, what's the best part? What's the worst part in that first month, week, or something?
It's interesting because the first day, and this is me because I've started other jobs in the past. I remember my first day, the laptop, it was a Monday. My laptop got shipped to me on Friday or Saturday. And then I cracked it open, and it's like, yeah, I was able to connect and set up everything. But then I was like, my manager is on the West Coast, so I didn't actually have like a meeting till 11. I was like twiddling my thumbs for the first few hours, like, okay, what do I do now? And then there was of course, the ramp up period. There's having a manager was a struggle, because I effectively, since like mid 2000s, have been unmanaged as a person.
Self-managed.
Yeah, self-managed. Yeah, I guess depends on how you look at it. And I think, let's just get the negative stuff out of the way. So I think probably the worst period for me at Microsoft in terms of questioning things was early this year. Of course, you saw in the news, Microsoft laid off, I think, 10,000 people. Of course, a lot of the tech companies did, economic conditions and, a whole bunch of different reasons. And that was a very tough period in terms of morale, in terms of the team members, because I was working with people that were legitimately scared that they were going to lose their jobs. And they had families to support, they had bills to pay. In a lot of cases too, there was folks that are in the United States on work permits that if they lost their job, they would have 90 days to find something else in a very, very tough job market, where they have houses, their kids are in schools, and they were faced with that prospect. And I felt for them in a bad way, because it was just sort of like, man, like, what do you do in a situation like that? So overall, the morale really hurt. the teams and the productivity, just because people were so down in the dumps about different things. There's been folks that have been at Microsoft for years, and it's sort of like the prospect of them having to go back out in the job market was very, very scary. And then, and then here I am in my position kind of going, well, if you're going to hand out packages, I'll take one. Like, I don't care, because I know I'll land on my feet, but I'm in a much different situation. And that was really hard, because it was sort of like it was completely out of control. And then that also dragged on for a couple months. And I, don't want to sound critical of Microsoft, but I did provide that feedback saying, you know what, these layoffs where it took way too long. They should have been, if they had to happen, they should have been quick, like rip the Band-Aid off, get it done, get it over with, move on. I appreciate what they were trying to do is terms of the dragging out process was really meant to try to save as many jobs as possible, look for other cost cutting areas. And probably it did save a lot of roles and, made a lot of people less anxious and give them another opportunity, but it also caused a lot of extra anxiety and things like that. So it's sort of like, you know what, I mean, as much as when the days are good, it's good to have a plan when things are bad and how are you going to execute on that. And that would have been advice I would have given to Microsoft as a corporation. It's like, if you need to, someday you may have to go through this again, put a plan in place, like an escape plan or whatever, that if this happens, here's how we're going to execute it to make sure it's a lot fast and easy. So that was sort of I think that one of the negative aspects of it. Of course, that things have changed. The economic conditions, I think, at Microsoft definitely looking a lot better now. They're hiring people, obviously. So it's good, but that was just sort of
Scott. No one else, just Scott.
Just of course. Well, they've blown the budget on the hiring budget on Scott. Like,
yes.
How much did they have to pay for Ribbon Workbench to get that IP? So,
yes.
Oh no, that's fine.
So, but yeah, that in terms of the positive aspects of Microsoft, I mean, there's a lot more. The people you work with, they're amazing, super, super smart, very brilliant. You tell them something, they get it right away. The younger people earlier in career, very eager to learn, look up and respect and like reach out and say, hey, Nick, like, I got this. Like, you worked with Power Pages. We're looking at this thing that, still says ADX on it. Do you know what it does? And I've had really, really like rewarding conversations with those types of folks. And then also too, if you need to find something out, I found every time I asked a question, I've worked for other large core organizations where like, okay, I need to figure out how do I do X or how do I do this? And then the question would kind of go up the chain. It would disappear. You would never hear about it again. I found in Microsoft, I always got an answer on something. It was, someone, it might not have been immediate, but, my manager would know somebody that would know somebody that could email somebody else. And always we would get an answer eventually, usually pretty quickly, sometimes within an hour or so. I'd find out exactly like, hey, we want to, how do I get, this particular asset or this piece of software, or can we get this, or how does that work? And then boom, up the chain, down the chain, here's your answer. Like, wow. So that way it's really good. And then just the overall, the camaraderie amongst the team, it comes down from Charles Lamanna. He said this in meetings where he said, no jerks policy. And there really aren't a lot of jerks. Like, yeah, there'd be disagreements sometimes and, that kind of thing. But overall, people are treated with respect. Yeah. They're, treated as professionals. And it actually is in that respect, it's a great teams to work with. You're not, you're not dealing with dead weight. I didn't have to deal with any dead weight, where I know in big companies, sometimes you get those people that they're kind of there. They're kind of hard to fire and you're kind of stuck with them. Microsoft, like, no, they're pros, up and down.
And Nick, you deal with jerks all the time, but then there's a snatch after it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, I'll get you. Thanks, man. Boom, boom. Yeah. So in that respect, leaving Microsoft in that respect was kind of tough too. It's like, I don't want to, it's kind of hard to leave these people behind as well. But at the end of the day, I had to do what was right for me.
So there's the good and the bad to look forward to. Every job is bad and every job is good. It's important to have that. I think it's important to have that mindset walking in. Oh, this is what this is going to be like. And so you're prepared for it. You're not going to be like completely overwhelmed. Like, oh, I never knew this was going to happen. Like, what am I thinking?
There's not things like that. There was a few interesting things, and I don't want to give too many surprises away too. But like immediately after the layoffs, we had this mandatory Well, yeah, of course, the other thing was the mandatory trainings, which I think every big company has. That's really interesting. You need to take the security training and all this other stuff, which is really important. You learn a lot of interesting things. Um, and and then some of this too, it's like made like episodic TV, some of the trainings you'll see. So you'll see the Scott, it's like, we're on season 8 of blah, blah, blah. And there's like all these scenarios and films and stuff. And I'm kind of like, you could have just sent me a PowerPoint deck and I would have gotten the same info.
And the thing is that you've got to watch it all, because then there's probably going to be a test at the end of it.
Oh yeah, the quiz at the end, and you need to make sure you pass. But I mean, I think that's just regular, and it's important stuff too to be on top of. That's just regular stuff. But I think the part that kind of stuck out to me was after the layoffs, or during the middle of the layoffs, we had it was a culture, they called it culture conversations. And I'll make sure I don't get myself or yourself into trouble talking too negatively about it, but it was all about it was a raw Microsoft kind of thing, helping make sure the culture was strong and stuff, and a lot of good stuff. But it was right in the middle of people being laid off and people not even sure if they're going to be there for the following week kind of thing. And I kind of thought, read the room. This isn't the best time for this kind of session. And I actually called it out in that meeting. There's probably 80 people in this particular session, and people are like, what are people thinking? What's their feedback? And then I'm like, I said, people are getting laid off. I have team members that are worried about their job, and we're supposed to talk about how great Microsoft is and the Microsoft One and stuff like that. Is this the best time? And then I was kind of bracing myself for the, oh, you're being a jerk kind of comments. But all of a sudden people in the chat window were like, yeah, we agree with Nick. This might not have been the best time, and da. So it's like, oh, okay. So, but I mean, this is big company stuff. This isn't even like so much Microsoft in a sense. And that's very minimal. And I don't want to rant or complain about that. It was just a little blip on otherwise a really great 2 years.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, isn't it, that period of time sort of overshadowed a lot of the other great things, because sometimes it's very easy as humans that we sort of focus on the big things, the things that perhaps were not so good. And I think they say that you've got to have, for every bad negative thing, you've got to have five positive things to counteract it.
Yeah,
that's just sort of like the default human state of mind. And so, I think I'm always going to be cognizant of that, is that, working for a large company, there's always going to be things that are just a part of large corporations that are just a fact of life, because that's the nature of being in a large corporation. You can't scale an organization to that size without there being the necessary baggage, overhead, of all of those other things. But focusing on the good things as well is really important. So but that's good to hear. I mean, I'm really excited.
And you're working with a great team like April Dunham and Daniel Lakowitz. Like, seriously,
that's what
it's excited. Like that's a in yourself. It's a dream team right there.
Yes.
With those two, and overall, like I would, if the right role came along for me and what I like to do, or down the road, if my kind of career plans change a little bit, I would not be adverse to going back to Microsoft. And that's probably the only company that I've worked for in the past that I would consider returning to, with no real hesitation. I love what I'm doing now. This in terms of the Venn diagram type of thing. I'm kind of back to what I was doing immediately before joining Microsoft. I absolutely love it. But yeah, if something came along that fit and checked all those boxes, I'd go back.
So are you going to be speaking at any conferences soon, or you be running any training courses that you want to plug?
I'm going to be speaking next week at Resco.next. And it's interesting because that is Resco is an ISV. I think if you've worked in Dynamics 365, I'm sure you've run into Resco before, especially if you're field service. They're developing some new stuff, some new Power Platform add-ons to, there's a something called Form Plus that they're working on, plus some other document stuff in terms of course, mobility. That's what they're known for. So they have a user conference or a business conference next week in Marbella, Spain. So that's where I'm going to be flying to Spain tomorrow.
Nice.
Doing a session on Power Pages, and then also doing a panel with led by Rick McCutcheon. Of course, a lot of people know who Rick is, with the Dynamics 365 the user groups in Canada, of course, plus all the other stuff he does. So that's the immediate thing. And then in terms of training, I'm trying to line up some other training. We'll announce that soon, hopefully near the end of November. Location, dates and location to be announced, and hopefully in the next week or so we'll be able to start advertising that a little bit. We've got to make sure all the other pieces fit. But then, yeah, in terms of that stuff, I think conference season is beginning to, I think, wind down a little bit. I'm not planning on going to anything else this year. Scott, I see that you're a judge at the Arctic Cloud Developer Challenge.
Yes, that's very exciting. Yeah, I'm kind of returning because I was there in 2017, I think, is the last time. So I'm really sort of privileged to be asked back, which is so cool. Although I did see that they posted a particularly ridiculous picture of me dressed up as Mario,
because the theme is Super Mario, I think, and actually, so I'm thinking
I'm not growing a mustache like that, just to be absolutely clear.
Come on. Yeah, so I'm actually, it's funny because I was a judge there last year this past one. And it was a ton of fun. I'd recommend anybody who, loves working with a Power Platform or just technology in general, 3 days of just heads down building stuff. Of course, they have a lot of other activities and things on the go as well. It's in, beautiful Oslo in February, which actually is quite nice. And
it feels like almost the original hackathon as far as the community is concerned, because if you look back at the history of it, it was way before all of the other community hackathons, way before all of the Power Platform hackathons happened. So yeah, it's very much established as the one to go to. We'll put a link in the show notes for sure.
So I'm trying to assemble. I think I'm going to be assembling a team to participate. So kind of throwing on the Nick Fury costume and going around to pick my Avengers.
Wait, that's a different team though, right?
It's a totally different team. Yeah. Oh, it's Super Mario. So yeah, maybe get my find my Luigi's in my all those that crew.
You're the Bowser type of person. You're
gonna
exactly.
Bowser. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And also perhaps you could do a plug for the Boost podcast, which is a little bit more enthusiastic than perhaps my plug for the Boost podcast was.
We were worried that we were going to get into a bit of a shout out to shout outs, but this is kind of cool that I'm on here. Power Platform Boost podcast with myself, Nick Doelman, and my co-host Ulrike Ackerbeck. And I hope I think I got it pronounced right because she nods her head every time I say it now correctly. So we do the Power Platform Boost podcast. We publish every second Wednesday. A new episode comes out. We basically take a look at all what's new and what's happening in the world of the Power Platform and Microsoft and technologies. It's loosely based on what Lisa Crosby and Megan Walker used to do with their Up podcast. That was sort of our inspiration. We've kind of gone our own way in a few different things. But yeah, definitely check that out. Provide us some feedback. It is something I absolutely really love doing. It's a ton of fun. And it's a way to stay on top of all the other aspects of the Power Platform, not just the things that I'm currently working on as well. So definitely check that out.
Listen.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, very enthusiastic.
I love that we get the plug at minute 48 into the podcast when we've already talked about him having it tattooed on his arm.
Yeah.
Order of operations. We got to work on that.
Yeah, and we do try to keep it about 30 minutes ish. And we actually this is the first week we actually got it under 30.
Yeah, impressive.
So maybe we need to do it more in person. Maybe that helps. I don't know.
But now you've got a tattoo then of it, you won't ever be able to stop doing it now. So that's it.
Or change your logo, or
this is for the rest of your life that you're going to have to carry on doing that.
That's commitment. That's commitment to the podcast. For sure.
That is commitment. Yeah.
I mean,
Microsoft decided to bring in Power Platform, the non-Power Platform. Yeah, you got to deal with marketing changes from Microsoft.
Well, we just did Boost on the thing. So just in case,
All right, just Boost. Okay.
It's just Boost. And it
Hedged your bets on that one. Good job.
the tattoo has a few more deeper meanings and all of that, which maybe that's a discussion for another day, another time. But yeah, that's us, and yeah, it's a lot of fun.
And also, how's weightlifting going? How's the? Are you the strongest Canadian living in Norway right now? Is that
maybe? I don't know. It's interesting. So, yeah, the powerlifting I had before I went on the tour to back to Norway, Denmark, Nordic Summit, all that. We had the provincials, which I did quite well. I had a couple PRs. That was like a month ago. I didn't train, and then I got back last week when I got back from Las Vegas. Like everybody else, I was sick for a few days. Went to the gym, felt weak as anything, and then we even had a fun contest last Saturday before I left, and it was a bit of a kerfuffle. I think I lost a little bit of strength there, but I will be back into training when I get back. I might go to the gym tomorrow, try to squeeze in a workout. And the next event will be probably the World Bench Press Championship. That's going to be in Austin, Texas, in May of 2024. Wow. So that'll be the next big thing
next week.
they'll be oh yeah, cool. So that's will be my current focus on training for the next while. And yeah, that's a whole we could talk about another hour just about powerlifting and how that all works. But yeah, so it's a lot of fun. It's my I call that my mental therapy, going to the gym for 3 or 4 times a week for a couple hours. Just great way to get off a lot of stress. Gives me goals to work towards, and it's actually pretty exciting being part of Team Canada and competing on the world stage in powerlifting.
Well, Nick, thanks for coming on, for sharing, Scott, especially the journey from MVP to Microsoft back to MVP and what's going on in your life. That's very interesting, and we encourage our listeners to reach out to you and to the Boost podcast and listen to that. If they have any questions for you, what's the best way for our listeners to reach out to you?
Probably the best way is just go on LinkedIn. I'm easy to find, and yeah, send me a message there. Mention that, say you heard me on the XrmToolCast or something like that. It's always good to have a bit of context where folks are coming from. You can follow me on X, not Twitter anymore, at ReadyXRM. And of course, you can do a search for the Power Platform Boost podcast and find me there as well.
I have a friend that he calls it X Twitter. I think I like that better than everything.
X Twitter, I like that. Yeah.
always be Twitter in my mind. Yeah.
X Twitter. Yeah. Anyway, well, Scott, that's how our listeners can get a hold of our guest. How can our listeners get a hold of us?
Well, yes, absolutely. Actually, I do have a shout out quickly to make to somebody that I met in Vegas who listens to the XrmToolCast. So an actual real person that actually came up to me that listens to the podcast, which is amazing. So yeah, May Mekes, apologies, I haven't pronounced your name. But yeah, she said, she listens to it regularly. And yeah, so thank you very much for saying that. But yeah, if you do want to get in touch and tell us that you are a real life person who listens to our podcast, you can email us at cast@xrmtoolbox.com or get hold of us on socials at XrmToolCast. And perhaps even let us know if you need any suggestions for any tattoos that you'd like Daryl and I to get.
Yes. Yeah. We'll think about that, I guess. So, well, Nick, thanks for joining us. I hope you're staying warm and being able to see the sun there in Norway, but and enjoying what you're doing there. So yeah, the wallpaper behind you is so cheerful and bright. I'm enjoying it.
It's interesting. Thanks for having me, guys. I really, really enjoyed being here. I've really enjoyed being on the show.
Thanks so much, Nick. It's been a great pleasure to have you.
Talk to you guys later. Bye.
Bye.
This has been the XrmToolCast with Daryl Labar and Scott Durrell, produced by Lynn Zawin. If you have any questions or suggestions, please send them to cast@XrmToolbox.com, tweet @XrmToolCast, or hit us up on our LinkedIn XrmToolCast page.